It's Zenzi, the globe's original consulting philosopher of bio-electromagnetism. Her own term, quantum physiology. Well, there's Zanzi. And any number of other ways I can put this together. I'm having a little mental college lecture on endocannabinoids. And I'm wanting to describe my work, my role as a theoretical philosopher with all kinds of applied tools and methods. And I want to compare and contrast my work with Einstein, Nikola Tesla, and Richard Feynman in sort of historical. Well, Tesla would come before Einstein. Historically wise, it's a little bit challenging. Two Nobel Prize winners and one who was politically denied because of Edison. Ooh, not fond of that man. And theoreticians are developed, kind of born into autism, having a sort of savant sense, if not necessarily just one nicheable skill. We have a savant sense of something. Einstein, and it comes from lived experience. So for the three guys, I can sort of get you there. Einstein, his family did light. He was obsessed with light. He won the Nobel Prize for the photoelectric effect. In my case, his miraculous year, it's the Brownian motion. It's really interesting to me. And somewhere in there, he got something really, really wrong. He just decided to get rid of the ether. Now, I can make no assertions about space and ether, but I can make some assertions about bio-electromagnetism and the ether. Now, the curious thing is both Nikola Tesla and I are completely certain that Einstein's wrong. Now, Tesla, of course, great. Probably, arguably, I don't have anywhere near enough data, but who could he invent? Like 70 patents or something. I'm not being precise, but like astounding number of patents. That's in my future. But not patent things, patentable philosophical tools. That's where we get to Richard Feynman. And this is going to be concentric, but Feynman diagrams, Feynman, all of these things. It's very funny. I just realized that he didn't work in the quantum world. And in a lot of my regression, quality assurance of my philosophical hypothesis, bio-electromagnetism, which sorts the hard problem of consciousness into an easy pivot. I'm going to give us heuristics, life-centric thinking heuristics, and placebo tools. Okay, the placebo effect is a problem for a drug company trying to get you to spend money. But we're looking at it in a very perverse way because it's not the sugar pill. We're all sort of in agreement there, but it's not your beliefs either. Not 100%. We all believe that we should be making loads of money. And as far as I know, almost no one is. Your beliefs aren't that strong enough. You don't have the willpower to behave your beliefs. When it comes to being sick, and now there's certainly aspects to the placebo effect that are belief-based. But it's just not strong enough, reliable enough, verifiable enough, quantifiable enough. Double entendres is always my thing. What placebo tools is exploring, and this has to be a valid fact. The body just cures itself. The body heals itself. The body repairs itself. Much, much better words. Medicines cure. But as the globe's original consulting philosopher, All I'm doing, she's Sherlocking all the time. Solving crimes against humanity from a faulty, flawed, and fraudulent scientific paradigm based on the Western whiteness thought tradition. We're in a seeing is believing paradigm that has got us stuck. And if I can pivot as the wise feminine, fiercely feminine, future forward-looking philosopher who wants us to understand that feeling is knowing. When you pivot from seeing is believing to feeling is knowing, here's what you do. You go from Einstein's light sector of the electromagnetic spectrum into the sound spectrum of the electromagnetic. This is where life exists, down here in sound. Now, sun life has figured out bioluminescence and all these kinds of things, and we are wired for light, primarily, but not all of us. Now, Einstein and Tesla, most assuredly autistic. Feynman, I read the James Gleick, who I was turned on to by Robert Sapolsky. That guy's a great writer. One of the reasons why I'm so certain I've nailed this, and why I've done such impressive regression testing, all my referencing, it's that the liberal arts guys are doing biographies of the scientists now. 100 years later, I've done this not by looking at what the consensus of their work is, the output. I'm looking at their lives. I'm looking at their quotes about their thinking about their work. It's consciousness. Well, I'm allowed to do this, but in the current society of the U.S. of hypocrisy with just a BA, I'm able to quack at the... It's kind of preposterous. Nobody will spend the time to evaluate my ideas, my theories, hypotheses, etc., etc., etc. They just look at me and say, now I'm changing how I look. And I am autistic. So my communication right now is... But certainly in Nikola Tesla's life, Nikola was in and out of autistic meltdowns and shutdowns all the time. And he, again, there's this bias about Einstein and Feynman. I think Feynman is the one who shows that just there's little data in the Gleick biography. But autistic lives, when they have the right support, you don't know we have autism. That's my thing about my adult onset autism. And of course, I was always autistic, but I self-managed it. And how did I do it? And what did I do it? And it's some of this concentric things, Norman Deutsch. So I was certain, I slept a lot, that I really did some astute things that made me a social pariah and got me punished as a child. But I was listening to the truth of my body, not first. Then figuring out how to play by all the rules and blah, 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 blah. But there wasn't a rule that I could play by if my body said no. Really, you get ostracized, you get punished, you get bullied as a 55-year-old woman. Everyone is telling me what to do. I'm asking for some help, like share a meal with me, have a conversation with me. That's really never happened. Now, some people, they're good people and they stick with me, but between the strangers everyone is just trying to tell me what to do. What happened to freedom? This is supposed to be the freest country in the world. Everyone telling me. Food stamps. I am racing Elon Musk to $1 trillion based on very astute and very non-falsifiable readings of Einstein, Nikola Tesla, and Richard Feynman, just to get started. So the Deutsch thing is, again, in the way the brain heals, some data on the tongue being the royal road to the brain. The Russian scientist, and they did some great, physiologically, Russia, anyone in the know, technology-wise, they were doing some good stuff when we were all at war. Gotta stop that stuff. Tesla was, I am very much a parallel. He's my neurokin. I will not deny it. I don't think I'm going to end up as a pigeon lady. Because I'm not going to be in New York City. I don't live to visit. I can't live there. No wonder he went berserk every now and again. But he was there because he's trying to get into the bank accounts of the robber barons. A significant part of why I think global warming is a big problem. But in the time span it's going to take for the planet to become uninhabitable, we're going to kill ourselves off with technology. So I'm really a very necessary person. Carnegie Mellon degree philosophers aren't tech Luddites. We're tech astute. And that I'm just body first. I'm telling you, things have gotten disastrous because of, it's like tulip madness technology. The emperor's new coding around here. What I'm going to go back and talk about, though, back to the physics of it all, bio-electromagnetism. What I want to negotiate with Stanford up front, and who knows, I'm 55. I do not need a degree, master's or doctorate. I have solved consciousness. Precisely, I have sorted the hard problem of consciousness into an easy pivot, then done an enormous amount of pro bono intellectual scholarship of world-evolving proportions. And you gotta let me, it takes a while to get to. When I say these things up front and then try to give the details, people just judge me. When I try to give all the details to work up to these things, people's attention spans can't keep up with me. It's a perverse thing to be in. Being somebody who sees the future, being somebody who's just seen a very pretty simple to understand flaw in the current scientific consensus. But who's open enough and who's got a complementarity of a background? Well, it's Robert Sapolsky of Stanford. He's gonna really enjoy working with me. That's my goal. How, what, why, I don't know. But if he can write a New Yorker profile on me and get his Oliver Sacks on, instead of the man who mistook his wife for a hat, and I mean, really, that's the title you can't top, but the non-binary human who thinks she's consciousness incarnate. Boy, that's a contrarian way to say that, but I mean, we all are. I just never was able to have people care for me, want to play with me, so I figured out how I work. I figured out how to deal with all of the constant sensory overwhelm. Being highly sensitive, it's a gift from evolution, but a curse in a society built on the dehumanization of plantation capitalism. Well, I'm gonna give this a 15-minute. Here's just a concentric survey of some of the behind-the-scenes logic operating. Uncertainty principle, Feynman's diagrams. Roland Omnez, a French physicist who wrote Quantum Philosophy, had nothing to do with philosophy really. He's making a philosophy of quantum physics. he mentioned that one of my Carnegie Mellon alums, Griffin, in the 80s had talked about histories of probability. We're getting randomness and probability and all these kinds of things. There is nothing in the universe more random than human communication. It is way up here. It's built and built and built and built and built and built and built. And we built a society, and we bully and punt. We act like we know what we're talking about when very few people do. I mean, that's why I can solve a lot of crimes against humanity. I think concentrically. I can hold my core and go out and out and out and ripple through the universe and go, well, hey, if I've solved consciousness and I've done this regression testing and now I can offer a real valid theory on body, mind, soul, human functioning. And I mean soul just in the pragmatic sense. There is no, I'm a non-theist. You know, and the quantum physicists and the Buddhists are all having bromances left and right. Port my theory through demonstrating improvements to autistic children and adults. Work with Stanford, Robert Sapolsky, to New Yorker profile to make sure I've got the right investors, the people who I can trust. My work, it's not a product to sell. It's about saving our species from self-extincting in approximately 30 years. Now a couple minutes over my 15-minute time allotment. But you gotta give me some space here. I have hyperlexia. It's a trait of autism that I spent 6 weeks trying to do a 15-minute pitch, and I can't to my own satisfaction. I could probably, you see, this is how complex my brain is. I dwell in the complexity, and I get stuck out there in the outer rims of the concentricity going, communication is highly random. And my ability to know that I've nailed this pitch, I can't have it. Especially because I need it to stay alive. There's no pitching if I die. There's no solving autism. There's no taking what I've proven when I do sort the hard problem of autism into an easy pivot. And there will be a statistically significant reduction in actively, we need new words here, being autistic is a physiological archetype that person can live a very fantastic life of never even knowing they're autistic. They have a supportive family and they're allowed to explore the universe and be into their savant zone. Great life. But you have too much sensitive to sensory overwhelm and spotty community, family support, and bad educational systems. It goes awry. It's the mind and body complementarity of autism that needs a good theory of consciousness, and then that good theory of consciousness really goes into autism. Autism is not, a bacterial viral disease. It is not. It's developmental, so it's not, things just going awry with age, which I question. It's not a really good, valid theory at all. Indigenous elders don't just go kaput. They stay at a very optimized zone, and they visually age, but they change their roles in the community, right? You go from highly active to more resting, zenning, wisdom sharing. So much of these are for me in the documentary because I'm just practicing, and I cannot get my tempo. And this, of course, I set this up because this is very interesting to me. My final point back about Feynman diagrams, like, and the quantum guys not even knowing their own physicists, like, because Feynman diagrams became such an integral part of physics. You don't really reference, like, multiplication and, Euclid and we don't do our referencing backward as much. So in just because of silos, Griffin's thing about histories and probabilities, because stuff, and even at the quantum, you don't know where it is, but there's highly probable places it will be, and entirely unlikely. The thing about free will is when a human being can hit some of those highly uncertain places, and we're not doing it consciously. It's autonomic. It's a feeling state. It's a flow. It's a being in. It's having your Renaissance patron and matron sit down at your lunch table on Saturday in July. And when you were here the previous Synchrony 23, having the Nobel laureate keynote speaker come sit right next to you at breakfast. I didn't talk so much to Mario. Couple things I'd literally finished. I'd been there. I had 3 or 4 different conversations, so I was kind of talked out. I need extra time to negotiate the movement into the hall and get my right seat and he's a very silent talker. We chatted a moment or two, but nobody really comes to sit right by me. Now, the places but it's interesting. Of all the people in attendance, the Nobel laureate sat next to me. Time and time again, if we'll get me here, people that you think will find me cray-cray will have delightful times talking to me. I'm a different person for everyone I talk to. If I have data, I didn't know Mario was Mario at the time. Only later. And even if I knew Mario was Mario, I wouldn't have hassled him at breakfast. Men would have. Any other people would have, but I didn't. Same as Mr. Renaissance patron. I could see he was absorbing the information that he paid for. All I did was write him a little note card. I was saying, I don't think I got a picture of this, and I don't have a... What's this say? Philosophical hypothesis of bio-electromagnetism via case study of adult onset autism. Yeah, so you got... I'm like, this didn't complete very well. It's on the other side. Right, so I had... Why it was really interesting, because I had to do things like, put things on the front of the, my autistic adult. But, this is very, very interesting, how to get... Yeah. So I'm trying to, I would say something to somebody and say, I'm the one who talked to you about the philosophical hypothesis of bio-electromagnetism via a case study of adult onset ASD. And philosophical hypothesis, autism yields environmental trauma, epigenetic harm due to climate change. Case study, adult ethnic. So I'm giving these out. Synchrony Symposium. Just like how Genentech was made. Her Boyer and I'm all. Little scribbledy scribble. So literally, who knows if Sean kept it, but if you did, or if I had taken my photo, I can't be out in the world. I got my photos of my Chappelle challenge when I almost governor of Maryland, Ben Jealous, asked him to set up a Socratic dialogue with me and Dave Chappelle on behalf of the Sierra Club. Got so many ideas. So much I'm capable of. I'm starting to get the cheekbones to prove it. Harmony.